Sam was at Peterborough United for 4 years as a player. When he was released, he went to university and he studied sports coaching and physical education. After completing that degree, he went back to Peterborough and he was actually a coach for the under-15s. Then after 2 years, he was offered the head of academy recruitment role. And I believe he's been doing that for the last 3 years. Sam's going to spend his time here this evening giving us a little bit of an insight into what we may be missing when we're looking at player observation. So, Sammy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Cheers, Watters, and also thanks for that photo. It's a good photo of me, I think.
Great
so, we had a few messages already saying about that photo, so you've absolutely killed me there.
Google said thanks.
So for the next 15 minutes, just going to be talking about some talent ID and specifically observation skills. So there'll be some interaction during the PowerPoint for you, all of you to get involved in what I'd like you to do as well. So one thing I want to mention at the start would be scouting is very subjective and everyone will have an opinion on players. Some will agree with you, some won't agree with you. But I think one thing with scouting is there's it's different to other areas where there's no data. So you're going to watch a game, there's no data there, depending on what age group you're watching, and you've just basically got to make a decision during that. So the first part I'm going to talk to you about is challenges to scouting and observation. So I think it's key when we're going out scouting, if we have a real clear picture of what your first team looks like. So what sort of playing style do they play? What sort of position what sort of players in certain positions, what do they look like? So is it a centre half? Do they have to be a certain height? Is it a striker that plays on shoulders, a target man, etc.? So having a real clear picture of the first team and working backwards instead of going from your younger age groups upwards. I think it's really, for me, it's vital to have looking at the top, working your way back down to your 18s, your 23s, your 18s, 16s, 15s. Also, on top of that, I think it's really important for scouts to have a real understanding of what each age group they're looking for. So for scouts specifically going out to look at under 14s, under 15s, do they know what your under 14s, under 15s look like at your club? Or are they currently, or are they just going out blind? Because I think that would be important to see the standard, know the standard, and then can really help with their observation and watching games. Also, maturation, so statistics around maturation. Obviously, scouting, in recruitment, we're not sports scientists, we're not going to know the ins and outs of everything around this. But I think if you have a little bit of an understanding, that can help your observations. Relative age effect is quite, we'll see some statistics later, but within the academy, you'll see a lot of people from quarter 1, quarter 2 players in the English academy system. Does that affect what we're looking at? Does that affect our observation? Training age, especially for the younger age group. So an under 9, he might have only been playing since he's 6, 7. Does that affect it? Where someone might have been playing since 2. So they've had 4, 5, 6 more years training over someone that's just playing 2, 3 years. So they might be able to catch up. Also, I think a good one as well would be, do we sign someone who is just good in possession? And I think most of us would do. I think when we're looking, yeah, he's good in possession. That could get him in the door. But I think it'll be the other way. If someone's just good out of possession, not very good in possession, do we ever look at them possession? Do we ever look at them players? So I'm going to talk a little bit about biases. And then the last one I think is important is the potential versus performance. So do we know what we're looking for? Is it first team where it is performance and we need players to really progress and help the first team get results? Or is it someone, a 12, 13, 14-year-old who we could potentially, within our programs, nurture to become the player we want to at 16? So this is what we're looking for. Me, when we help with our scouts and stuff, this is what we ask them to go look out for. So we're very much based super strength. So I think this is more age specific for under 9s to 14s potentially, where do they have a super strength? So it could be a midfielder who just keeps possession of the ball. Really simple, just moves the ball from side to side, keeps it, doesn't give the ball away, and then breaks lines with his passes. That could be his super strength. Could be a striker, can just finish. He might not be good at he might be a 10-year-old, might not be good at every other area, but he's a finisher. He can score goals. 3 things I like scouts to look for. Do they stop goals? Do they create goals? Do they score goals? So we've got all 3. So that could be goalies. Do they stop goals? What they like? Do they create goals for our philosophy to match it? And do they score goals? I think as well, the way the game's going, they've got to be physically competent. The game's getting faster and faster. Statistics will back this up as well. The fullbacks have changed over the years. So I think it's really important to have be able to physically competent. This is quite hard under certain age groups when people are going through peak height velocity. They might lose their coordination, they might lose their speed. But if we have an understanding about this, then it hopefully will help with our recruitment. And then, is it potential or performance? What we're looking for? Is it the potential? Are we going to see him in 2-3 years' time after all the hours of coaching, or is it right now? Is he going to come into our first team and affect it and help us get results? So the next slides is just a little bit of interaction. So just off the cuff, we're going to have 10 seconds on the next slide. I want to see how many things you can pick up. Remember in this slide in 10 seconds. So 10, 9, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Next slide. So, on the comments, if you want, how many things could you remember within them 10 seconds of just looking at that piece of that slide? So, on the last slide, there was 25 different pictures. Okay, I think normally when I do this before, we see roughly around about 7, 8 straight off the cuff if we're looking at straight away. So this, in terms of observation, in terms of football, it would be, for me, there's 22 players on the football pitch. If you're going to watch a game of football, do you see, and you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what your first team looks like, you don't know what what the striker looks like in your first team, you don't know what the striker looks like in the under 13s. If you're going with a blank canvas, it's going to be really hard to pick players out. Also, if you have a real clear view, and so if we go back 2 slides, where now I ask you to, a couple more forward, the other way. Next one. This one, now I'm going to ask you to look at things are yellow. It makes it a lot easier. We have a really clear idea, and there's 4 yellow things on the page. So it has a real clear idea. If we say, look at the things for yellow, this could be us saying, right, look at someone's super strength, for a player's super strength, or we're looking for a right back in our under 13s, 14s. Can you find me one? So it makes it a lot easier. And now I've said the yellow, hopefully on the piece of paper, on the PowerPoint, they stand out a little bit more. So I think it's really clear if a scout has a real clear idea, then it'll help them with their scouting, their observation, and help them try to find new players. So the brain plays tricks. Okay, so it fits in with the patterns and views of the game. So we might see certain things on the pitch. I'm sure we've all been there when we're watching a game. We've all been there when we're coaching on the sideline, and we think something's happened. And you go away from the game, you think something's happened, or someone's done something. You watch it back, and that thing never happened in the game. And you're thinking, what's happened there? So the more you watch it, the more times you can see something, the better the picture will be. We can easily get drawn to the obvious. This isn't always a bad thing, okay? But we might miss things. If we always get drawn to the obvious, then our mind might miss other things, and we might take away attention from other things during the game. And greater understanding of challenges to talent ID can help minimise the missing out on the not so obvious. Recognising potential. So the Oxford Dictionary recognise that potential is qualities of abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. Okay, so I think it's important, especially in youth football, to understand what potential is, what potential looks like, and how they're going to get to their peak. Okay, so I said earlier a little bit about relative age. I'm trying to rush through it because there's quite a few slides. So the relative age effect, obviously the pink is academy football. So in academy footballs, there's a lot of players. 45% of players in academies are born between September and November. And in quarter four, what's June to August, only 10% of players in academies are born in that age group. So for me, that's just showing that why is this? Could be early developers, could be players who are maybe more physical, be able to show their talent a little bit more. Early maturers have better anaerobic power, explosive power, sprinting, agility, they're quicker, they can run a little bit further. But I think the facts are, if you look at the rate of players from the relative age effect, that more players if they survive, the percentage is higher, quarter fours that will make it if they go through all the system at every age group. So why would that be? Maybe they've had to deal with bigger players throughout their academy lifespan. They might have had to go deal with players who are quicker than them. Might be able to, so they'll have to adapt. And when they eventually reach their peak, they'll be able to be at a level with the other players and catch up. And then they've already had that exposure of that failure. And also, I think with quarter fours, they'll have a few more bumps in the roads, and I think that gets them a little bit more resilient. Okay, so I think the good one about Harry Kane, obviously we all know he got released by Arsenal, wasn't told he wasn't good enough at Arsenal at 9. He was a late developer. You look at him now, you wouldn't think he was been a late developer, but he was at age of 13, he was down on his pace, his speed, his sprinting, his agility, his power. It was down on most of the statistics. But one thing Harry had was he was always a good finisher. Throughout the age groups, he was always a good finisher, and also he had lots of dedication to go and work on his finishing. So he had a super strength, and Tottenham saw that, nurtured it, and thought, you know what, when he gets to 16, he's going to come out the other end. He's going to be taller, he's going to be quicker, he's going to be stronger. So let's work with him, and hopefully he comes out the other end. And I think they've played a good part being patient with him. And I think that's key with a lot of players, to be patient. There's lots of stories. I think we can say John Stones, he was a late developer. Harry Winks, another one. So some of the top England players might have had to go back in the age groups. They're in the academy age groups to get to where they are today. So this is just a little video we're going to play now, just a little 1 minute video. I just want you to think about what you see during this video. Might be a little bit cut out, but what do you see during the video? So do we see an early developer? I think most of you would say you see an early developer. Is he bigger than everyone else? Yes. Is he powerful than anyone else? The size difference. Is it challenging him enough? That's another thing. Is it challenging the player? Okay, so majority of you in your head would be looking at him going, early developer, potentially will get caught up. Will he be this good when he's get caught up? But when we watch him, do we see a lot of skill? For me, I see a lot of skill within this boy. His handoff, look at him when he hands off. He's running with the ball away from the man so he can't get knocked out of his hands. So he might be an early developer, but there's nothing saying that he will always be bigger than everyone else. He always might be one of the most powerful boys when he's 18. So watching the obvious, okay, that might be an easy one to spot. He's a good player. We need to sign that player. We need to recruit that player, okay? But if we focus just purely on that, what we might miss. Because what I saw was a lot of players standing off, not even wanting to tackle him. I don't think as a 7, 8-year-old you would want to tackle him. But look at the boy in this photo now. He's got a great position to tackle. He's got a great body shape, okay? But he's not powerful enough. He's not strong enough to take him down, so he gets knocked off. But 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the line, if he's that brave now, he might still be that brave. And that technique might be something to work with and continue to work with. And when he does get bigger, more mature, he potentially would be able to make that tackle instead of getting ran through. All right. So just the last one, talent identification. It's a tough task. We're out there every week, every weekend watching games. You get frustrated. You bring players in that to the academies, to your squads that you think are going to be really pushing. And then you get told by the coach they're not good enough. And it is a constant battle. But if we have better idea and understanding around talent ID and observation skills and how to limit the failures, not failures, but limit the players that come in and don't get taken on. If we can really work on that, then hopefully we can get more players into the academy, your squads, your sides, your first teams. The task is not to just see what it is, but to begin to envisage and work towards what it might be. Brilliant. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you found it useful. Is there any questions?
Yeah, Sammy, well done, mate. That was really interesting. So I'm going to pick out a few. What I'm doing is those that if I don't answer your question, what I'm doing whilst the other people are speaking is I'm taking them down and then I'll just pose them to the guys afterwards. So I know who's asking the questions and I will get them answered. But obviously we are on a little bit of a clock. So first question, so how does your role change when the first team manager changes, and does that affect the players you recruit?
So yeah, it does a little bit. I think within the academy, we have a sort of a philosophy within our academy. So it doesn't change in terms of what we're looking for earlier down. I think they need to be able to handle the ball. I think if you play route one or you want to pass it, if they can handle the ball, I think they can do both. So we're very much within the academy. We did used to swap and change between managers and try and work off their philosophy. But we try and get the fundamentals, and then when they get older, we with the tactical information, what they'll need to know for the first team will change potentially within the when they move through the age groups.
Good stuff. Question from Mark Duckett, the Bedford manager, I think it is. Best player you worked with that slipped through your net, that went on to progress somewhere else, and what was the reason?
Josh Davison, who now plays for Charlton, played a few times. We got him in. He come into the academy. We released him at 18. That was sort of it's a tough one as well, because when you change manager, I think a lot of players, that crossover is a little bit, it's a little bit of a grey area. So we didn't take him. We didn't offer him a professional contract, but now obviously he's in the championship playing for Charlton, played a few games this year. So Josh is one that really bugs me a little bit, because he was a great kid as well, and I wish he was still with us.
So how many times, Josh has asked, how many times will a scout view a player before making a final decision, and how many opinions will there be on that player?
So a scout will watch the player once. If he then recommends the player, He'll then recommend it to one of our senior scouts or myself, who will then go watch the player. And then once we've watched the player and we've made the decision, he'll then be offered now it's an 8-week, it used to be a 6-week trial. We'll offer him an 8-week trial at the club, and then they'll, off the back of that, it'll be then down to around about the squad manager, the phase lead, myself, the academy manager, head of coaching will all make the ultimate decision. So it'll be 5 people sort of making the decision.
And last one, you've got quite a few, so you're going to have a few questions to come back to me on, Sammy. But yeah. So I think he's quite poignant, because I know looking at some of the crowd, there are those youngsters that have all been maybe where you were at one point. So when starting out as a scout or in a talent ID role, what can make you stand out from the crowd? It's a good question, Tim.
I think a lot of clubs, especially at Cat 3, Cat 2, I think actually Cat 1, there's voluntary roles. So a lot of our scouts would be volunteers. They would go out and off their own back and watch games, etc. So I think the ones for me that stand out are the ones who are really active, doing it off their own back, coming back with players, what about this, asking questions, wanting to learn. When we run CPD events, they attend the CPD events because they always want to get better. And then you sort of build up a trust and widening your net, talking to them quite a lot and stuff. So I think it's just basically trying to be as active as possible within what the role allows you, will get you to stand out.